It all started with a text, not one I sent, but one I happened to see. I should have been focused on making breakfast, easing into my morning routine. But the moment I stepped into the kitchen, something felt off. Sophie had left her phone on the counter, unlocked, as she ran upstairs to grab her purse. That alone was strange. She never left it lying around, especially not unlocked. Maybe she was just in a hurry. Maybe she didn't think anything of it. She had been acting rushed lately, distracted, distant. I chalked it up to stress, a busy week, maybe just a passing phase. After a decade of marriage, I thought I knew her rhythms, our shared mornings, inside jokes, occasional arguments, and the kind of steady trust you build over time. But in that moment, that trust crumbled. The phone buzzed. My eyes darted to the screen. Curiosity tugged at me. Or maybe it was instinct, some gut-level sense that something wasn't right. I hesitated. Then I leaned in. "Can you come earlier? I can't wait to see you again." That one message. That one name. Daniel. My heart dropped. Everything else around me went silent. My brain wanted to deny it, write it off as innocent. A mistake. A joke. Anything but what it looked like. I picked up the phone, telling myself it was to confirm my doubts, to ease the panic rising in my chest. But as I opened the conversation, the truth hit like a punch to the stomach. The deeper I read, the worse it got. This wasn't about work. This wasn't about a misunderstanding. There were no neutral words, just hotel reservations, late-night plans, and flirtatious messages that stripped away any room for doubt. Mentions of lounges, rendezvous, pet names. Promises whispered between two people who clearly weren't hiding anymore. My stomach twisted as the words blurred together. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, watching the life I thought I knew collapse below. Sophie, the woman I had chosen to spend my life with, the woman I had built a home with, was having an affair. I sat at the counter, holding the phone like it was made of lead, the air around me suddenly heavy. Time seemed to freeze, the sound of the world muting behind the roar of disbelief in my ears. And then it got worse. A new message appeared. Confirmation for a dinner that night. The Chelsea Lounge. Dinner. Drinks. A meeting. That was tonight. And Sophie had just told me she was going out for a work dinner with her colleagues. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was strategic. Calculated. She was lying to my face, and she didn't even flinch. She returned to the kitchen moments later, cheerful, like everything was normal. She leaned in, kissed my cheek, grabbed her keys, and smiled. "I'm heading out. Don't wait up." I answered softly, calmly. My voice didn't betray the storm inside me. "Sure." She walked out the door, never realizing that I knew. She didn't see that I was already planning my next move. Because I wasn't just going to sit there and cry. I was going to find out who Daniel was, and then I was going to make them both feel what I felt. The moment the door clicked shut behind Sophie, I stood motionless in the quiet kitchen, her phone still warm in my hand. I wasn't trembling. I wasn't yelling. I was done with feeling shocked. Now, I wanted answers. Daniel, just a name on a screen, yet it already felt like a splinter in my chest. Was he a stranger? Someone from work? A name I might even recognize? I sat down with the phone and opened my laptop. A quick search gave me more than I was ready for. Daniel Whitmore, a highly visible corporate lawyer. Clean-cut. Wealthy. He lived in a penthouse on the Upper East Side and had the kind of resume that made headlines, speaking events, award ceremonies, elite gatherings. His social media looked like a highlight reel of power and influence. But what froze me wasn't Daniel. It was the woman often seen standing beside him in those perfectly staged photos, Victoria Whitmore. She was everything Sophie had tried to emulate. Elegant. Impeccable. The kind of woman who didn't just walk into a room. She took ownership of it. Sleek hair. Polished style. A commanding presence without saying a word. Daniel was married. And just like that, this story stopped being about just me and Sophie. I now knew something Victoria didn't. I could have walked away. I could have left her in the dark the way Sophie had left me. But something about that felt wrong. I knew what it was like to find out the truth too late. Alone, ambushed. If the roles were reversed, I'd want someone to tell me. And so I made a decision. The next morning, I stood outside the Whitmore building, a towering monument of glass, steel, and privilege. The kind of place where people sealed themselves off from reality. And then she appeared. Victoria Whitmore. She moved with purpose, wrapped in a sharp trench coat, her heels clicking on the concrete like punctuation marks. She wasn't rushing. She didn't need to. The world moved around her. I stepped forward. Mrs. Whitmore? She paused. Her eyes were clear, direct, slightly guarded. Do I know you? No, I replied. But we have something in common. She tensed. I could see it in her fingers gripping her handbag. What is this about? I pulled out my phone, opened the thread, turned the screen toward her. Her gaze dropped. She read. Her expression didn't crack, but I saw the moment the realization hit her. The color drained from her face. Still, she didn't cry, didn't flinch. Are you certain? She asked, voice tight. I am. We stood in silence for a beat longer than comfort allowed. Then she straightened her shoulders and said what I least expected. Do you have a plan? And just like that, I realized. I had underestimated her. Victoria Whitmore wasn't going to fall apart. She was going to fight. We found a quiet, upscale cafe just around the corner. The kind of place where deals were made over lattes and secrets stayed tucked between whispered conversations. Victoria sat across from me, composed, a steel edge beneath her calm exterior. For the next hour, we laid it all out, what I had found, how I discovered it, what I had already seen on Sophie's phone. I showed her the texts, the photos, the meeting arrangements. Victoria didn't flinch. She didn't ask for breaks. Her eyes stayed locked on mine, only flicking down to the evidence with focused precision. She was furious, but not like I had been. My fury had started from pain. Hers was born of calculation. Cold, controlled, strategic. He's been doing this for months, she muttered, finally sitting back. I knew something was off, but he's always been careful. Too careful. Same with Sophie, I replied. Until she slipped. They always do, Victoria said. She sipped her coffee like it was part of a business negotiation. So, what do you want? I paused. The words came easily, like I had rehearsed them in my head all night. I want them exposed. I want them humiliated. I want them to feel like I did. No, worse. I want them to realize they didn't just cheat on us. They destroyed their own lives in the process. Victoria leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with that same fire I had seen earlier. Then let's do it together. That was the moment we became co-conspirators, not out of romance or shared sadness, but revenge. Not the loud, reckless kind, the precise, surgical kind. And the first target? The Chelsea Lounge. That's where Sophie and Daniel were meeting tonight. That's where it would begin. The Chelsea Lounge wasn't just any place. It was a discreet sanctuary for secrets. Low lighting, velvet booths, soft jazz playing over murmured conversations. It was exactly where you'd expect two cheaters to meet when they thought no one was watching. Victoria and I walked in side by side, not as a couple, but as a united front. She wore a dark navy dress that clung to her with quiet elegance, her face unreadable. I kept it simple, dark jeans, a crisp shirt, unremarkable enough to fade into the crowd, but confident enough not to be overlooked. We spotted them right away. Sophie leaned in close to Daniel, laughing softly. His hand rested casually on her thigh like he owned her. The sight hit harder than I'd expected. No text or image could compare to witnessing it live. Watching her smile at him like she used to smile at me. Watching him touch her like he had every right. Victoria was silent beside me, but I could feel her energy shift, shoulders squared, spine straight, fury masked behind absolute poise. Ready? I asked under my breath. Her reply was smooth, cold. Let's make them sweat. We moved as one. I slid into the booth beside Sophie. Her body went rigid instantly. Her laughter stopped mid-breath. She looked up, her eyes wide in panic. Daniel, slow to realize what was happening, turned. And the moment he saw Victoria, the color drained from his face like water down a sink. Victoria took the seat beside him and gave him a razor-sharp smile. Hello, darling. Silence fell over the table like a guillotine. Sophie's hand hovered midair, stuck between reaching for her drink and clutching her purse. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. I leaned in slightly, voice low and deliberate. Didn't expect me tonight, sweetheart? She blinked, swallowed hard. Mark, I thought you were home. I finished for her, waiting for my loving wife while she had dinner with colleagues. The silence stretched just long enough to sting. Daniel stared at Victoria like he'd seen a ghost. Amelia, he began, calling her the wrong name. Victoria didn't even blink. Try again, Daniel. Were you so used to lying you can't remember which woman you're supposed to be with? His mouth opened, but no words came. Only more silence. It was perfect. Let them stew in it. Let them squirm. Sophie's eyes darted across the room, searching for an escape route. Her voice trembled. Mark, please, not here. I leaned back slowly, keeping my voice calm and even. Why not? You didn't seem to mind being here with him. A few nearby heads began to turn. The whispers were starting. The heat of shame was creeping into Sophie's face. Daniel, still clinging to a shred of control, cleared his throat. Maybe we should talk about this somewhere more private. Victoria let out a soft, sharp laugh. Privacy? You lost the right to that the moment you brought your affair into a public lounge. Sophie flinched. Daniel clenched his jaw. I turned to face my wife, this stranger who once shared my life. But the fury that had once boiled in me had cooled into something far more dangerous. Clarity. I didn't need to raise my voice. I had already won. Sophie's fingers twitched on the table, like she wanted to fix things, reach across the divide, say something to make it all go away. Mark, I held up my hand, just slightly. Save it. Victoria tapped her nails on the table, her tone dry and detached. You both thought you were clever, didn't you? Thought you could get away with it. Thought secrets wouldn't surface. Daniel's hands balled into fists. The whispers around us grew louder. Sophie looked like she was unraveling, eyes wide, breath shallow. Daniel abruptly stood, knocking his chair into the table. This is ridiculous. Victoria cocked her head. Or just true. Sophie grabbed her purse. We need to go. I didn't move, but I shifted just enough to block her path with my shoulder. What's the rush? You were perfectly comfortable 5 minutes ago. Her eyes met mine, and for a second I saw it. The fear, the pleading, not out of guilt, but out of desperation. She didn't regret what she had done. She regretted being caught. Daniel turned to Victoria. Can we please just talk? Somewhere else. She adjusted her dress, voice cool. You can leave. I'm staying. That hit him like a slap. He hesitated, looked at me, then Sophie. Then he turned and walked out, alone. Sophie followed seconds later, her heels clicking like gunshots on the polished floor, trying to escape the eyes on her. She didn't look back. She never looked back. And just like that, they were gone. Victoria and I didn't move. We sat in silence as the whispers swirled, as the truth seeped into every corner of that lounge. We weren't finished. This was just the opening act. Later that night, we regrouped at my apartment. The adrenaline from the confrontation still buzzed in my bloodstream. Victoria had kicked off her heels and curled up on my couch like she belonged there. Calm, unshaken, focused. She scrolled through her phone with a deliberate coolness, like a surgeon prepping for an incision. I sat across from her with my laptop open, gathering every shred of digital evidence Sophie had carelessly left behind. Daniel won't survive this, Victoria said, sipping from a glass of whiskey. Her tone was cold, precise. His law firm has a strict ethics clause. If this gets to them, they'll have no choice but to cut him loose. She smirked and didn't bother finishing her sentence. She didn't need to. We both knew what we were about to do. They eat bad publicity like it's poison, she added. But they don't just cut, they cauterize. I nodded. Then we hand it to them, neatly wrapped. My files were already organized. Screenshots, timestamps, even a hotel receipt from a week ago. Sophie had been discreet, but not discreet enough. Her texts, her photos, her plans, all captured by cloud sync and auto backups she probably forgot about. Every whispered lie, every false alibi, stored, sorted, ready to detonate. Victoria looked up from her phone. How do you want to play this? I met her gaze. I want her to feel it from every direction. No escape. No corner to hide in. She gave a small nod. Then we start with Daniel. She knew exactly where to send the files. Within minutes, she drafted a sterile, corporate email to his firm's ethics committee. No emotion, no accusations. Just facts. Subject: urgent ethical concern regarding partner behavior. Body: to whom it may concern, please find attached documented evidence of Mr. Daniel Whitmore's extramarital affair with a client's spouse, conducted during business hours and using firm resources. I trust this matter will be treated with the seriousness it deserves. Anonymous. She hit send. That should get their attention. Now it was my turn. Sophie's world thrived on image. Her social circles, charity work, school boards. Her entire life was curated like a magazine spread, and I was about to light it on fire. I opened the parent group chat. These women live for gossip and snap judgment. I typed slowly. Carefully. Funny how the most perfect people are the ones hiding the dirtiest secrets. Sophie Whitmore, devoted wife, proud mom, cheating with a married man. Don't believe me? See for yourself. Attached, screenshots. Proof. Receipts. Send. The chat erupted like a volcano. No way. Are you serious? I always knew something was off with her. Does her husband know? Good. Let them devour her. And I wasn't done yet. Once the parents' group chat exploded, I moved on to Sophie's next sacred circle, her charity board. She'd spent years polishing her image there, presenting herself as the graceful wife, the ideal hostess. That illusion wouldn't survive the night. I drafted an email to the board chair. Subject: discreet concern regarding Sophie Whitmore. Given recent developments involving Sophie Whitmore's conduct, I thought it best the board be aware. Documentation attached. Attached were carefully selected images. Nothing obscene, but damning enough. Her reputation didn't need scandalous detail. It only needed doubt. Then came the local event planner who coordinated her social calendar. Would you still represent someone whose personal life might jeopardize your brand? And finally, a single text to the sharpest gossip in her circle. Not hard evidence, just a whisper. Thought you should know. Check the parent chat. I leaned back. It had begun. Across the room, Victoria's phone buzzed. She smirked, holding up the screen. Daniel's firm just called an emergency meeting. It was spreading fast. My own phone lit up with messages. Friends, acquaintances, even mutuals from Sophie's side. Mark, what happened? Is this real? Dude, she's spiraling. I ignored them all. There was no going back. We had set the machine in motion, and it was chewing through the lives they'd built on lies. Victoria set down her drink, her voice calm and surgical. This will get ugly. I met her gaze. That's the goal. And we sat there, not celebrating, not gloating, just watching their world collapse in real time. It was the first peace I had felt in weeks. And it was far from over. By the next morning, Sophie's carefully built world had begun to rot from the inside. Whispers turned into phone calls. Invitations vanished. Her name, once said with admiration, now passed from mouth to mouth with contempt. She called me 7 times before noon. I didn't pick up. Her texts poured in, each more frantic than the last. Mark, please, I don't know what people are saying, but it's out of control. Can we talk? In person? I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't reply. She wanted to salvage her name. I wanted her to feel what I had felt. Helpless, humiliated, powerless to stop it. Victoria was scrolling through her calendar when she looked up and said it like a passing thought. Let's finish it at the gala. I raised an eyebrow. What gala? She smiled like a chess master moving her final piece. Daniel's law firm's charity gala. It's this weekend. Everyone will be there. His partners, her friends, the media. My mind started racing. You think they'll show? They have to, she said. They can't afford not to. It's their last chance to pretend nothing's wrong. She was right. So we set the trap. Victoria made a few subtle calls in the right circles, just enough noise to make Sophie feel obligated to show face. You're still going to the gala, right? I heard something, but I'm sure it's just gossip. Best way to shut it down is to walk in like everything's fine. And just like that, they had no choice but to attend. That night, I dressed in the tux Sophie had picked out for me years ago, back when she thought we'd spend our lives together. Victoria wore a black gown that made her look like royalty and retribution combined. We arrived together, arm in arm, not because we were together, but because perception was power. The moment we stepped into the venue, conversations dimmed. Heads turned. Whispers rippled. They had read the texts. They had seen the photos. Now they were staring at us, the betrayed, not the broken. And then we saw them. Sophie in a red dress, bold but desperate. Daniel beside her, looking like a man aged by fear. Eyes hollow, posture stiff. They saw us, and the color drained from their faces. Victoria exhaled softly, like a countdown had just hit 0. Showtime. At exactly 9:45 p.m., the lights dimmed. The crowd quieted as a man with the confidence of a career politician stepped onto the stage. The event's host. He smiled, unaware he was seconds away from detonating the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? The murmur of conversation faded. Tonight, we'd like to recognize a few individuals who represent excellence and commitment to our legal community. He turned toward the audience. Daniel Whitmore, would you please step forward? Gasps. Confusion rippled through the room. Sophie's fingers clamped around Daniel's sleeve. He didn't move. I saw the calculation in his eyes. Flee or fake it. Victoria sighed dramatically beside me. Go on, darling, she whispered under her breath. You love the spotlight. Reluctantly, Daniel walked toward the stage. His gait slow, every step a death march. The audience clapped politely, unsure of what was coming. The host continued. Daniel, your reputation precedes you. But tonight, we'd like to show a different side of your legacy. A projector screen descended behind him. And then, everything. The texts, the hotel receipts, the photos, every message between him and Sophie. All of it played like a horror slideshow against the velvet-draped backdrop of a luxury gala. A gasp swept across the room like a wave. Sophie's hands flew to her mouth. Daniel froze mid-breath. Victoria leaned in toward him, her voice like ice. This is what it feels like to be stripped of your power. The host stammered, finally realizing what was happening. Perhaps we should. But it was far too late. Daniel's partners were already rising from their seats, whispering in urgent, furious tones. Words like misconduct and termination floated through the air like poison. Sophie stumbled to her feet, grabbing Daniel's arm, but he shook her off. The crowd parted as they bolted from the ballroom, their exit silent but seismic. Victoria and I didn't follow. We didn't need to. The entire room watched them flee like thieves in the night. Game. Set. Match. For the first time in months, my heart felt steady. Victoria turned to me, pleased. But I wasn't smiling. Because while this was the end of their charade, it wasn't the end of our revenge. By the next morning, the storm was no longer just gossip. It was front-page material. Victoria's phone buzzed first. She read the message slowly, her expression unreadable, then turned the screen toward me. Daniel's firm just announced his indefinite leave of absence. I exhaled. That was fast. She sipped her coffee, unfazed. They don't waste time when scandal's involved. Not with their name on the line. By noon, it was worse. His name was scrubbed from the firm's website. His clients were backing out. Rumors of mismanaged funds and shady settlements started surfacing. Victoria had been right from the beginning. Men like Daniel didn't just cheat. They cut corners. They built their lives on illusions. All it took was a little light, and the cracks widened into chasms. Meanwhile, Sophie was unraveling in real time. 12 missed calls, 6 voicemails, dozens of texts. She was grasping for something to hold on to as her world sank around her. Mark, please. I don't know what's happening. Everyone's turning on me. Can we please talk? Just talk? I didn't answer. I wasn't interested in explanations. Her charity board had dropped her. The school committee froze her out. Her friends stopped answering her calls. Because Sophie didn't have real friends, she had status. And status was a fair-weather ally. By nightfall, there was a knock at my door. Free sharp wraps. I knew it was her. For a moment, I considered leaving her outside, the way she had emotionally left me months before. But I opened the door, and there she stood, unrecognizable. Her makeup was streaked, her clothes wrinkled, hair a mess, eyes hollow. The same woman who strutted into the Chelsea lounge confident and proud, now looked like someone lost in her own wreckage. Mark, she whispered. I didn't say a word. Can we talk? I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. Talk about what? She flinched. You know what? I tilted my head slightly. You mean the affair? She nodded, eyes watering. Please, let me explain. I let out a small, cold laugh. No. Her lips trembled. Mark, I swear. I still love you. That word, love, hit wrong in my ears. If you loved me, I said calmly, you wouldn't have done what you did. She opened her mouth to speak again, but I cut her off. You weren't sorry when you lied. You weren't sorry when you cheated. You were only sorry when you got caught. Tears rolled down her cheeks now. I was selfish, but it didn't mean anything. It meant enough to burn everything we built. Silence. Then the softest plea. Can we fix this? I stared at her for a long moment. No. She blinked. No, she echoed. The divorce papers are already filed, I said. You'll hear from my lawyer. And with that, her face crumpled. The final collapse. She turned and walked away, shoulders hunched, footsteps unsteady. I didn't stop her. I closed the door. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. But it wasn't over yet. Daniel was still standing, barely. And I had one final nail to hammer in. Sophie was finished, her reputation in ruins, her circles silent, her identity reduced to whispers and judgment. But Daniel still had breath left in him. His career was gasping. His marriage was dead. But his pride? That still clung on. Victoria and I weren't satisfied with letting him walk away from the wreckage. We wanted to bury him. She sat across from me in my living room, her posture relaxed, her tone anything but. "We need something that sticks," she said, swirling whiskey in her glass. "Scandal fades. But financial ruin? That doesn't." I nodded. "Permanent damage." And we had the means. I'd done my research, dug deep into Daniel's financial past. What I found wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. He wasn't just unfaithful. He was a fraud. Hidden payments. Under-the-table settlements. Case outcomes that didn't add up. It was all buried in carefully manipulated records. Victoria already suspected as much. One night she'd said, "No one climbs that fast without breaking rules." He made partner in 3 years. No one does that unless they're cutting corners. So we kept digging. A few quiet calls led us to a former paralegal, someone Daniel had screwed over years ago. She was more than willing to talk. Turns out, Daniel had been playing dirty for a long time, bribing clerks, burying unfavorable documents, securing wins at any cost. We assembled everything into one file. Falsified transactions, client complaints, fabricated evidence trails, and his internal emails suggesting misconduct. Once complete, we sent it to 3 places. A major legal news outlet, his firm's senior partners, a state oversight board. Victoria hit send without flinching. "He's done," she said. "He just doesn't know it yet." By midday the next day, Daniel Whitmore's name was everywhere, not for achievements, but for accusations. By 5 p.m., his firm had announced he was under internal investigation. By midnight, he'd been removed from their roster entirely. His legacy? Gone. Meanwhile, Sophie had quietly packed her belongings and moved out of the apartment. Word was, she was staying with her sister in New Jersey. From a luxury brownstone to a borrowed guest room, her fall wasn't just personal. It was public. I heard she'd stopped attending social events. No one invited her anymore. She'd become invisible, unwelcome. Exactly what she'd made me feel in the weeks before I discovered everything. And then, just when I thought the chapter was closed, I got an email. From her. The subject line was blank. Just a single name in my inbox, Sophie Whitmore. For a moment, I stared at it, considering whether to even open it. My hand hovered over the trackpad. Curiosity won. It was short, almost sterile. "Mark, I know you don't owe me anything. I just wanted to say I hope you find happiness. You deserve it. Sophie." No excuses. No pleas. Just that. I didn't reply. Some things don't deserve closure. Some wounds don't need bandages, just distance. As for Daniel, his fall was louder, more violent. The investigation turned over every stone in his career. Clients abandoned him. His partners publicly disavowed him. His wife, Victoria, had already left. He went from celebrated attorney to industry pariah in less than a week. He had built an empire on charm, lies, and backroom deals, and I watched as it all burned down. I didn't have to lift a finger. All I did was shine a light. And like all men who think they're untouchable, Daniel destroyed himself. A few days later, Victoria called. She was at the airport. "I thought you weren't sentimental." I joked. "I'm not," she said with a smile in her voice. "But I wanted to say goodbye." "Where are you going?" "Paris. Maybe London next. I need something new." "You deserve that," I said. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "So do you." And that was it. No promises. No lingering drama. Just 2 people who walked through hell together and came out the other side changed. I didn't expect to see her again. And that was okay. Some people enter your life to destroy the rot you couldn't face alone. They don't always stay to rebuild. The next morning, I woke up and noticed something strange. No tightness in my chest. No urge to check my phone. No anger clinging to my throat. Just silence. Freedom. It was over. The war was fought. The lies exposed. The wreckage left behind. But none of it was mine to clean up. I packed a small suitcase. Booked a one-way flight, not to Paris. Not even to Europe. Just somewhere else. Somewhere without ghosts. As the taxi pulled away from my apartment, I watched the city blur past. Places I once shared with Sophie, streets where I once walked as someone naive. I wasn't that man anymore. I wasn't the husband waiting at home while his wife pretended to be someone she wasn't. I wasn't the betrayed shell of myself. I was the man who took back control. And as the plane lifted off, I looked out the window and smiled. It's funny how peace doesn't come with fireworks. There's no dramatic music, no epiphany shouting over the rooftops. It comes quietly. In my case, it arrived with a sunrise over a city I had never lived in before, a place where nobody knew my name, where the weight of betrayal hadn't followed me like a shadow. No one here had ever heard of Sophie Whitmore. No one whispered about Daniel's downfall in cafes or charity luncheons. This place was clean, and so was I. I found a modest apartment, started working remotely again, rebuilt a routine. Simple things: coffee without tension, walking without looking over my shoulder, going to bed without checking her location, her messages, her lies. I stopped checking my inbox for her name. I stopped replaying what happened, not out of bitterness, but because it no longer owned me. Sophie never tried to contact me again after that email. Maybe she thought she had said all she could. Or maybe she finally realized some bridges don't burn, they collapse from rot. As for Daniel, last I heard he'd relocated, changed numbers, and was trying to freelance as a consultant under a fake LLC. But the legal world has a long memory. His name wasn't just ruined, it was radioactive. And Victoria? She sent me one postcard. A black and white photo of a cafe in Paris. No words. Just a red lipstick kiss next to her initials. I smiled when I saw it. Not because I missed her, but because we had done something remarkable together. Not just revenge. Justice. She helped me pull myself from the ashes. And then she left, like a soldier walking away from a battlefield after the final shot. She didn't stay to rebuild. Because that was my job now. And I was finally ready to do it. I don't know what love looks like for me in the future. I don't know if I'll ever remarry or fall into something as deep or as dangerous as what I thought I had with Sophie. But I do know this. I'll never tolerate a love that costs me my self-respect again. I'll never ignore my gut to protect someone else's lie. And I'll never, ever let someone else define my worth. What they destroyed wasn't me. It was the illusion. And what came after was freedom. Real. Quiet. Earned. If this story kept you hooked, don't forget to like the video. It really helps the channel grow.